Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Charlie Model. It's time for another inbox review, and today we have yet another World War II aircraft, this time from the Axis side. And today we are doing the Junkers Ju-87R Stuka from Trumpeter Models. So we're going to get into this kit. We're going to look at all the instructions, the decals, and all the plastic included in the kit, and then hopefully we'll see how good this kit is detailed. So give me 1 second to get the camera all turned around and everything set up, and I'll be right back. Alright, and we're back and starting to look at the box. We have some nice box art up front. It looks like it's in Africa, roughly, because of the African tan right here. We do have a total parts count of more than 330 pieces, a wingspan of 434.5 millimeters, and a length of 445 millimeters, which in freedom units is 13.6 inches for the length and 17.1 inches for the wingspan. So it's going to be a fairly decent sized kit. Alright, so going off to the side, we have a nice little history about the Junkers Ju-87R, just going on all the way through, starting off with the B and all the way to the R, and some more detail about the total production going on here. And then we also do have two schemes available for this, or actually just one. This is just a left and right profile right here. It doesn't say where it's from or when it's served on that one. It does look like it's in the African desert tan though, so definitely going to be around that time era. And then we flip it over to the other side, and then we have two other options right here with B and C, and those are in the camo versions right there. We have our decal sheet, and we also have the photo etch fret right here. I'm wondering on how they're going to do that special symbol that certain websites don't like to post. Even though it's a model history, it's not an actual symbol of what we believe in. But anyways, I'm gonna get this box open up and let's check out and see how this looks when it's all loaded in the box. Alright, so fairly decent amount of plastic in here. All the sprues are individually bagged, which is very nice. Just going through here, looking at everything on here, looks pretty nice. And then we have a separate compartment for our clear parts right here, also our photo etch and rubber tires as well. We'll get into all of that here in just 1 second. I'm going to get the box all unloaded and all the plastic set up, and I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, so starting off with the instructions, this is kit number 03216, and the typical Trumpeter format for their booklet type instructions in a landscape format, and it looks like it's going to be a decent thickness for our instructions. Pull out our color callouts, we'll go through that here in a second. But opening it up, again we have the standard parts callouts right here. The parts are numbered. You can read them as long as you get close enough to them. You can see everything. And then we have more parts callouts right here with our rubber tires, decal sheet, and a photo etch fret right here. And also a list of the unused parts that we are not going to use. And actually it looks like there is a good amount of parts that we don't use in this kit. Alright, so starting off, looks like we are starting with our engine. Looks like we're going to have a fully detailed engine right through here, adding all the components to that, and then adding the framing and our firewall to that. Then we're adding some more detail parts to our engine and our front engine cowls going on, along with our propeller and propeller hub right there, and also our exhaust stacks and a scoop for our intake as well. We also have an option between engine cowls right here for a closed or open, it looks like, so that should be some fairly nice detail on that. And then we're moving on to the cockpit, adding all of our cockpit accessories and everything in here. As you can see, we have a few little bits to go onto the walls, and then we're going onto the floor, adding a few parts in there along with our seats, getting all that done, and then adding some more detail to our cockpit yeah, so our cockpit floor right there with all the detail parts, I went in the wrong direction for all the detail. Alright, and then moving on, we are getting the cockpit sandwiched into the fuselage along with our tail wheel assembly. I'm hoping that we can do that at the very end. We'll have to check and see. But after that, moving on, we're just adding in our horizontal stabilizers and elevators and rudder. Right here we do have a good amount of detail going into those as well. And then we have our instrument panel. We do have a decal for that instrument panel, and then a couple other pieces going on to the fuselage as well, along with the radio box back here. After that is done, we are starting to work on the center wing section with a couple of wing spars, which should help with the support of the wings and also get the angles of the gull wing correct on that. Then moving right along, working on our outer wings. Looks like we have some gun bays to be included in this, so that will be nice to detail up and leave that hatch open. Then we have our hatches right here, so have to check and see how those hatches look. We also have wing tips for different variants right here being added on. After that's all done, we are getting our fuselage body and our wings all attached, so the center wing section and then our outer wing sections going on as well. After that, we're doing our canopy, getting our canopy all done. We have our rear gunner and then our front canopy sight. We do have a little bit of detail to go into there. And then we're also getting our nose section on there as well. After that, we have our dive brakes, our flaps and ailerons all going on. Can't tell if these are positionable or not, so we will have to check and see when we start to build it. Alright, and then after that we have our landing gear getting put together and then put onto the model. And then we start with our loadout. We have all the bombs and all of that going on. Doesn't look like we have cannons. This might be a cannon blister right here, and then fuel tanks and more bombs right here. And then lastly, we are putting in all the bombs and ordnance and all of that in here as well. So I think with me, I think I'm going to do the one big bomb and then the 2 fuel tanks on the sides. I think that's going to be the loadout for me when I do this. Alright, so moving on with our color callouts, our paint reference colors are Mr. Hobby, Vallejo, Model Master, Tamiya, and Humbrol. Again, some nice schemes on here. As you can see, this is the kind of the splinter camo scheme right here. And then we have another camo scheme right here. Again, very nice on that. And then we have our sand brown African desert scheme right here again. Now I am noticing that there is no special symbol located on the tail right here. I'll have to check and see and ask some of my expert friends, or you guys as well, if the symbol was actually on these aircraft or not. Because if they were, I can get a mask and paint those on. If not, I'll just leave them off. But it doesn't look like any decals or anything were added for that special symbol on here. Alright, so moving on to our decals. Decals, typical Trumpeter, they feel very nice, nice and thin, not too thick and not too thin. But they do feel very nice. There are no special symbol, even broken up into different parts. Those are not included in this kit. So again, if the symbol is actually on the aircraft, definitely going to need to get a mask to paint it on or buy aftermarket decals for that. But the rest of the decals do look fairly nice, except for the instrument panel, I have to say. That one does look pretty generic on it, so definitely going to be looking into some 3D printed decals for the interior of this kit. Alright, so up next we have our rubber wheels. Alright, let's get zoomed in here. Alright, so the rubber wheels, they do look okay. They just have this kind of rib detail that goes all around right in here, and then also there is a very slight seam line right in the middle, so getting that removed, getting that taken care of. But the wheels do look okay for that, and the same thing with the tail wheel as well, same level of detail on that. Alright, moving into our photo etch pieces. So the detail on here is okay. We don't have photo etch seat belts, so that's one thing. Again, kind of siding with the 3D printed decals. But the rest of the detail, alright, so the grills on here are not drilled out. It's just a solid piece of photo etch on here, so definitely, again, maybe an Edward photo etch set for that or something, but again, it's just one solid piece of photo etch. It's not drilled out like an actual grill. So, and we have a few other detail parts on here as well. The thickness of it, it does feel a little bit thick as well, but not too thick. Not the thickest photo etch I've seen from Trumpeter. Alright, so moving on to the clear parts. I had one break off and one that is right on the hair of breaking off. But the clear parts do look very nice. I'm not seeing any issues with any of them. No seam lines, no scratches or burrs or scuffing or anything like that. And they do look like they are crystal clear. So definitely going to want to get a mask to protect all of that, or make your own mask on that. Luckily all the windows are pretty much squared off, so they shouldn't be too difficult to mask off if you make your own mask. Then we have this one little one right here that fell off as well. Alright, so moving on to our first plastic sprue, getting on with the detail on here. The detail looks okay. The rivets, they might seem a little bit large in my opinion, but they do look okay. I mean, there are different sizes of rivets, so maybe that is correct on that. I can't tell if that's the upper. I'm thinking that these are the lower wing right here, because we do have the insert for the landing gear right here. So pretty nice rivet detail. The plastic is nice and firm, so we won't have any issues with that. It's not hard, it's not super hard and brittle, but it's not super soft either. And then we have our wing spars right here. Again, it's really going to help with the shape of that gull wing right there. And then all the other detail on here does look very nice as well, as you can see. Alright, so moving on to the upper wings right here, we do have some nice, again, some nice rivet detail all the way through there on the panels, and even some access hatches right here. And then we have our access area for the gun bays as well right there. And everything else looks very nice. We do have some raised rivet detail and also panel detail right on along here, so that's some nice detail going along on both of those. And then all the other parts are nicely detailed. I'm not seeing any flash or anything. Yep, so no flash as I can see. Actually, there's some very slight flash, very little bit of flash right on this piece right here. But other than that, everything looks okay. Maybe a little bit of flash throughout here, but again, very easy to clean up on those. We also have our gun, which our gun, the barrel is drilled out. I'm hoping the camera will pick that up somehow. There we go. So you do have that as well. Alright, so moving on to our next one, we have our, I think this is our horizontal stabilizers right here. Again, nice rivet detail like the rest of the kit. And then our machine gun, our ammo cans right here. Again, some pretty decent detail on those for injection molding. I think these are actuators for our flaps and elevators right here. Those are also very nicely thin, so in scale right there. And then everything else, again, looks very nice. On the reverse side, not much to it. All these areas where there's ejection pin marks, not worried about that because those are going to be closed up. Our ammo cans, I don't see any ejector pin marks on those. Then everything else looks okay on that. So okay, so on to our engine detail. Engine detail on this absolutely looks very nice. Actually, very, very nice. It's got a little bit of a cast detail molded into it, so that's nice. And then our oil can right here, again, everything is looking superb on these. I'm not seeing any issues with anything on this sprue right here. Flip it over to the other side, we're not going to be able to see any of this, but just to show you, you don't have any issue, no major ejector pin nubs sticking out, so this should build up to be fairly nice. Alright, then up to, I think this is our gun pod right here. Again, nice detail, some panel line and rivet detail on there. Not much else to it. We have our panels. Then we flip it over to the inside. There's no detail on the inside, so if you wanted to leave these open, you're going to have to do some scratch building. Also, there are some ejector pin marks right through there on those panels. So again, if you're going to open this up, you're going to have some work to do. But they do look okay on the outside. Okay, up next we have the large bomb that goes on the center line, and this one looks pretty nice as well. Not much detail to it. Our fins, again, they are pretty thick and they are squared off on the leading edges of it, so definitely going to need to come through and chamfer those off to get them at a good knife edge angle right there. And then everything else, again, not much to it. Just get those leading edges chamfered off so they have, well, it might, because they kind of feel knife edge when I run my finger across it. So we'll have to see, we'll have to take a look at it through the magnifier and see how it actually looks when we start to build it. Alright, up next we have our fuel tanks and a couple of the pylons, I guess. I think this is for our little bomblets right in here. Again, some decent detail on there. Again, same thing with the fuel tanks as well. And then we have our other pylons right there with some small hose detail right there. And also just a couple other connection pieces going on. Not much to this sprue as well. Alright, on to the next one. We have our small bombs right here, our little bomblets. They are in half, so gluing those together and getting rid of those seam lines. We do get 2 of these sprues as well, but looks like we're going to have a good amount of work to do on all these. Our fins, again, are rather thick and squared off for all of these, and the same thing for the little bomblets as well. So definitely going to take some work to get those bomb fins correct, or ordering aftermarket as the other option for that. Alright, moving forward, we're working on we have our lower center wing spar right here. Again, like the rest of the fuselage parts, the detail on there is absolutely amazing, as you can see. And then for the interior parts, all looks pretty good. Our instrument dial does look pretty decent as well. We do have that decal that goes over it, but the decal looks like absolute trash in my opinion. So I'm definitely going to be cutting all of this off and then going with a 3D printed decal for that. And then for the rest of the bulkheads and everything, we do have some nice faint wiring detail. I mean, that is some very faint detail. It's very close to the fuselage or to the actual plastic part. So I'm thinking I might be doing some lead wire on that when I do that, just to rewire and kind of bring it out a little bit. But everything else on here does look okay. The seats look a little bit generic as well, and a little bit thick on the side frames also. But other than that, I mean, I guess it's okay. On the reverse side, all this stuff you're not going to be able to see, so not really worried about any of that stuff. Alright, so up next we have our landing gear struts right here. You're not going to be able to see them because they're going to be tucked into these right here. And the detail on these, again, like the rest of the fuselage, really nice panel line and rivet detail. We have our propeller blades right here, again, nice, and they have the razor edge on the trailing edge and a nice rounded edge on the leading edge of the propellers going through. Then we have our 2 different options for cowl flaps. Those look pretty nice as well. They are a little bit thick, as you can see right there, so definitely going to want to sand those down to make them a lot thinner. but everything else on here does look pretty nice. I'm not seeing any issues. Our exhaust stacks, okay, those are not hollowed out, so gonna need to take some tender loving care to those, or aftermarket for those as well. Alright, so that's everything on this sprue. Alright, and on to the last sprue, saving the best for last. And again, like the rest of the fuselage detail, the panel line and rivet detail on here is absolutely gorgeous. It is nice and fine and crisp, and it's just right perfect on that line of large enough and deep enough for the for washes and paint and stuff. So that is very nice on that. So we have all that. The plastic is a good texture. It's not like silky smooth, but it has just a nice little texture to it. For me, I like that little bit of texture. For the inside, for our cockpit walls right here, not much going on, but I think we're going to be adding a bunch of little boxes on here. And then also, if you're going to do the Quinto Studios, it has all the compartments or electronics boxes to go on there and really liven that up. And then if you want to go crazy about it, you just go in and add some lead wire in for the wiring of all these boxes, which makes it look even better. So on the reverse side, alright, so for the cockpit, you're not going to be able to see any of this because it's going to have the sidewalls on there. And then for the engine, alright, so the engine, there are no ejector pins. There are a few like odd lines and such on here, but I'm not seeing, if you're gonna leave this off for the engines, or have them so you can take them on and off, but you're gonna have that seam line to deal with, or you're gonna have to do some surgery on the kit to cut off each one of those panels. And the plastic is actually the normal thickness for this plastic as well. But on the outside, everything looks absolutely brilliant with no issues on any of that. This should build up to be a really, really gorgeous kit when it's all done. Alright, so that does it for the Trumpeter 132nd Junkers Ju-87R Stuka. And I can say that this kit from the exterior side looks absolutely amazing. Looks like it's going to build up to be a really nice kit. Looks like it's going to have plenty of options for weathering and detail, and also with the 3 different paint options that it has, it looks like you have a good amount of different options to go with as well. For the interior side, yes, I think in my opinion that does need some extra work to it. Just from the dashboard, that decal, like I said, it looks like generic trash. Just a black decal with a couple circles on it. So that's my one gripe. The tail gun is nice and drilled out, so that's a good step in the long run for that. The wheels and the landing gear, I'm not worried about them because you're gonna be able, it's all gonna be tucked in these little panels or whatever you call them. So I'm not worried about any of that. The bomb detail looks okay. Gonna take a little bit of work on the fins just to get them narrowed out, but everything else should be okay on that. But other than that, I don't really think I have anything else to say about this kit. Also, one more thing. If you do know if that special symbol is supposed to be back there, please let me know so I can get some masks to paint those on, or some aftermarket decals to put those on as well, on any of the variants on that. So let me know in the comments with just a yes or no. You don't have to say that special word because that will get this video blocked on YouTube because of their algorithm and all that other good stuff. So just put a yes or no if that symbol is actually supposed to be back there. Alright, so other than that, that's all I have to say about this kit. I hope you guys enjoyed this inbox review, and if you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below, and also hit the bell button for notifications of when I post future content. And until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.